Ethan was a 26-year-old engineering student studying in Delhi. In January 2017, he embarked on a tour of Rajasthan with his friend Oliver. They began their holiday in Jaipur, exploring palaces and documenting their experiences on his blog. After a few days, they arrived in Alwar on January 26th, where Ethan checked into a hotel. 5 days later, as Ethan was supposed to check out and head to Bikaner, his parents noticed they hadn't received their usual daily call. Concerned by his uncharacteristic silence, they contacted the Alwar police to report his disappearance. Hotel staff informed the police that Ethan was alone on the morning of his disappearance. The manager of a nearby bookstore, the last person to see him alive, described him as outgoing, very lively and friendly. He had visited the store to buy gifts for his family. However, when the police searched the hotel, they found nothing suspicious. Around this time, guests at the hotel began to complain about strange tasting, discolored water and low water pressure in their rooms. As employees investigated the plumbing, they made a gruesome discovery in one of the water tanks on the roof. Floating next to his clothes and belongings was Ethan's partially decomposed body. Police officer to Ethan's father: "Hello, sir. I am calling from Alwar police station. I'm very sorry, but we found a decomposed body of Ethan in the water tank on the roof of the hotel." Father: "No, it can't be. Please, officer, tell me it's not his body. Please, for God's sake." Officer: "Sir, please calm down. I know this is difficult to believe, but it's true. Your son is dead." Father: "Was he murdered? Who killed my son? Where is Oliver? He was with him. Where is he? He killed my son." Officer: "No, sir, he didn't. Oliver has also been missing for the last couple of days. We are searching for him. The autopsy found no evidence of trauma, no traces of drugs, and no signs of suicide, which is very strange. We have listed the death as accidental drowning. I request you to come and take his body." A few days later. Officer: "Hello, sir. We found Ethan's cell phone near Bangor Fort. His last call was to Henry, and they spoke for over an hour. I called Henry. He's in Mumbai right now. I told about Ethan and Oliver. He's coming to Alwar. Can you tell me who Henry is?" Father: "Sir, they were childhood friends, like brothers. Ethan used to share everything with Henry." Officer: "Thank you, sir. Maybe he can help us. Ethan must have told him something he didn't share with you." The next day. Henry: "Hello, sir. I'm Henry, Ethan's friend." Officer: "Oh, I was waiting for you. Please sit down." Henry: "I should have told you earlier about what Ethan was going through. I thought he was kidding, but now I realize I made a big mistake. I could have saved my friend." Officer: "What? I didn't get you. What happened?" Henry: "One day, I received a call from Oliver. He was terrified." Oliver: "Henry, please help Ethan. He is possessed." Henry: "What? Are you mad?" Oliver: "No, I'm serious. He needs help. Please believe me." Henry: "Calm down. What exactly is happening? Where are you now?" Oliver: "We're staying in Alwar, Rajasthan. We visited Bangor Fort, said to be India's most haunted place. The Archaeological Survey of India has put up a board at the fort gate prohibiting entry after sunset. Locals say anyone who stays inside after dark is never found. One night, we saw a lady talking to herself. Ethan wanted to ask her who she was talking to, but I stopped him. Later, we saw her again, and she was walking next to me, desperate to tell us the story of Bangor. I tried to leave, but Ethan wanted to talk to her. I was ahead of them when I looked back. She had vanished, but Ethan was still talking to someone. You must think I'm joking, but there was no one there except Ethan. I tried to get him to leave, but he insisted on speaking to Sophia. Henry: "Stop fooling me around. Ethan is a prankster. Now don't waste my time. Have him call me. I've been trying to reach him for days. Bye." And then I hung up. That was my first mistake. I never received a call from him again. Officer: "I know Bangor Fort is haunted, but I've never been there. The stories I heard from locals all mention one named Sophia. She was the princess of Bangor, famed for her beauty. By the time she turned 18, she received many matrimonial offers. A tantric named Samuel was infatuated with her. But he knew he had no chance. He decided to use black magic to win her over. One day he saw her maid in the market and planned to enchant the oil she bought. When the princess learned of his plan, she poured the oil on the ground, turning it into a rock that crushed Samuel. Before dying, he cursed Banga to death, saying there would be no rebirths. This curse manifested during the battle between Banga and Ajabgar, where Sophia was killed. According to some stories, she has been reborn, and the fort awaits her return to end the curse. Many believe the fort is haunted, which is why entry is forbidden after dark. Henry, this is my fault. I shouldn't have taken them lightly. I could have saved them. Officer, it's not your fault, Henry. What was your last conversation with Ethan? Henry, it's hard to believe, but I should tell you now. One night, I received a call from Ethan. He was crying. Ethan, Henry, please help me. She will kill me. She's following me. Please save me. Henry, Ethan, stop it. I'm not liking this. Where's Oliver? Let me talk to him. Ethan, she killed Oliver. I haven't seen him for 2 days. Last time we were together, he heard strange noises in our room, screaming, crying, and the sound of bangles. That night, I chased Oliver. He was terrified. I filmed him. And that was the last time I saw him. I'm sending you the video. Henry. Henry. She's coming for me. She's coming for me. The call disconnected. I tried to call him back, but it was switched off. Officer, did you watch the video? Can you show it to me? Henry, no, I didn't. I thought it was a prank. Officer, please, open it. I want to see it. Henry, okay, wait a second. Sid plays the video. The unsettling footage shows Oliver in the hotel elevator, acting bizarrely. He peeks in and out, presses multiple buttons, and gestures erratically before exiting the elevator. The video ends with the door sliding closed. Henry, that's scary. Who was Oliver talking to? He looks terrified. What's going on? Officer, look closely. Do you see that? Henry, yes. It looks like a shadow of something. Officer, I think Oliver was right. Ethan was possessed or something was following them. We shouldn't reveal this to the world. Let's delete the video, and please don't tell anyone about our meeting. You may go now. Thank you for coming, Henry. Henry, of course, I won't share this with anyone. Thank you. 1 month later. The officer was driving when he received a message from Henry. She follows. Officer, what? What does that mean? He tried calling Henry, but his number was switched off. Officer, damn it. Excuse me, madam, is there a phone booth nearby? My phone is dead, and I need to make an urgent call. Woman, I'm also going to a booth, but it's far from here. Officer, no problem. I'm a police officer, please, sit in my car. I'll drop you there. Woman, okay. Whoa. Officer, by the way, what are you doing here alone? Woman, nothing. Something is waiting for me. Officer, something. What do you mean? Woman, Banga. Officer, what? I don't understand. Woman, nothing. Anyway, we've arrived. You can drop me here, the phone booth is ahead. Officer, thank you. By the way, what's your name? Woman said while smiling, Sophia. It was a rainy evening when I first met her, a girl with an ethereal beauty that felt out of place in the mundane world around us. Her name was Ratna. The memory of that day still haunts me like a shadow that refuses to fade. Driving towards Hanai to visit my grandparents, I noticed her standing by the roadside, drenched and alone, her eyes pleading for help. I slowed down, curiosity mixing with concern. Need a ride? I asked, the words escaping my lips before I could think. She nodded, a smile breaking across her face as she slipped into the passenger seat. Anjal, please, she replied softly, her voice like a whisper carried by the wind. As we drove, we chatted about trivial matters, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I had known her forever. Yet, something was unsettling about her presence. It felt like she was both here and not here, a fleeting echo in the chambers of my mind. When I reached Anjal, I turned to her. This is your stop, but as I looked at her, the smile faded from her lips, replaced by a somber expression. You know, she said, her voice suddenly heavy, you should be careful with the decisions you make. Why do you say that? I asked, confused. She turned to look at me, her eyes glistening like wet stones. Some places hold memories that are better left forgotten. Her words sent a chill down my spine. As she stepped out, she turned back to me one last time, her expression unreadable. Thank you for the ride. We will meet again with that. She vanished into the mist, leaving me with an unsettling feeling that clung to me like the dampness of the evening. Weeks passed, and life went on as usual. However, I couldn't shake the memory of Ratna. Each night, her face would appear in my dreams, her words echoing in my mind. It was as if she were trying to tell me something important. Then, one fateful night, as I was about to sleep, a sudden knock echoed through my room. I jolted awake, my heart racing. It was just a dream, I reassured myself. But as I lay there, the knock came again, this time more insistent. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice trembling. Silence responded. I got up and opened the door, half expecting to see a stranger standing there. Instead, the hallway was empty, the silence wrapping around me like a shroud. I closed the door, my heart pounding in my chest, and returned to bed. The following days were a blur of anxiety. I felt like I was being watched. I avoided the places Ratna had warned me about, but the fear was relentless. Then, one evening, I decided to visit my grandparents earlier than planned. As I drove, the sky darkened ominously, thick clouds swirling overhead. I felt a sudden urge to speed, as if something was urging me on. As I approached a narrow road, I saw her again, standing at the same spot where I had first met her. Panic gripped my heart. How could this be? I was sure she had disappeared into thin air. I pulled over, heart racing as I stared at her. "Ratna," I called out, my voice shaking. She turned, her expression unchanged, but her eyes held a depth of sadness. "You shouldn't have come back here," she said, her voice softer than before. "Some things are meant to remain buried." "What do you mean?" I asked, desperation creeping into my voice. "What's happening?" She hesitated, and for a moment, I thought she might vanish again. Instead, she took a step closer. "You are in danger. There are things in this world that hunger for the living. I can help you, but you must trust me." Trust. I had barely known her, yet here she was, warning me about danger. But there was something in her eyes, a sincerity that compelled me to listen. "What do I have to do?" "Follow me," she said. And without thinking, I stepped out of the car. As we walked, she led me to an abandoned house on the outskirts of Anjal. "This is where it all began," she whispered, a note of fear creeping into her voice. The house loomed in front of us, dark and foreboding, yet I felt a strange pull towards it. "What happened here?" I asked, glancing at Ratna. "Tragedy," she replied. "A family lost everything in this house, their souls trapped here, unable to move on. They're angry, restless. You must help them find peace." "What can I do?" I asked, my heart pounding as we entered the decaying structure. Shadows danced along the walls, and the air was thick with despair. "Listen to them," she instructed, her voice barely above a whisper. "Their pain is tied to yours. You share a bond, an understanding. Only you can set them free." As I stood in the dim light, I felt an overwhelming sense of dread wash over me. The house creaked and groaned, as if the very walls were alive, mourning the loss of their inhabitants. I took a deep breath and closed my eyes, focusing on the silence that enveloped me. Suddenly, whispers filled the air, faint at first, then growing louder, overlapping into a cacophony of sorrow and rage. I could feel the weight of their anguish pressing down on me, threatening to crush my spirit. "Help us," a voice cried out, sharp and filled with despair. "We are lost." I opened my eyes, heart racing. "What do you want from me?" I shouted, desperation clawing at my throat. "Help us find peace," they wailed in unison, their voices echoing through the house. I realized then that they were trapped, their souls tethered to this place, unable to move on. Okay, I will help you," I pleaded, tears streaming down my face. In that moment, Ratna stepped closer, her eyes meeting mine with a mix of sadness and determination. "You must acknowledge their pain, listen to their stories, and let them go." Gathering my courage, I began to speak. "I am here to listen. I want to understand your pain. Please, tell me your story." The air around me shimmered as the voices became clearer. I heard tales of betrayal, love lost, and promises broken. Each story unfolded like a tapestry of grief, and with every word, the oppressive weight in the room began to lift. Ratna stood beside me, her presence a comfort as I guided the souls toward the light. Slowly, the darkness that had consumed the house began to recede, replaced by a gentle warmth. The shadows danced and flickered, revealing a glimpse of peace I hadn't expected. As the last story was shared, a hush fell over the room. The souls, no longer burdened by their pain, began to fade, their forms glowing with a soft light. I felt a rush of emotion, a bittersweet mixture of sorrow and relief, as they thanked me, their voices like a gentle breeze. "Thank you," they whispered, their words wrapping around me like a warm embrace. "You have freed us." With that, they vanished into the light, leaving behind a serene silence that echoed in the corners of the house. Ratna turned to me, her eyes shining with gratitude. "You did it," she said, her voice steady. "You helped them find peace." But as I looked around, I felt a sense of unease creeping back in. "What about you, Ratna? Are you free too?" I asked, fear gripping my heart. She hesitated, and I could see the shadows flickering in her gaze. "I'm not sure," she replied softly. "I'm tied to this place in a way I cannot explain, but I've done what I can." In that moment, I understood the weight she carried. She was a guardian of lost souls, forever bound to help others while remaining trapped in this realm. I reached out to her, wanting to pull her away from the darkness. "Ratna, you don't have to stay here. Let me help you too," I pleaded, desperation thick in my voice. She smiled faintly, but there was sadness in her eyes. "Sometimes, the only way to help others is to remain where they are," she said. "But I will always be with you." As she spoke, the house began to tremble, the walls vibrating as if acknowledging our presence. "You must go now," she urged, her voice trembling, "before it's too late." I didn't want to leave her, but I knew I had to. "I'll never forget you, Ratna," I vowed, my heart breaking as I stepped back. "And I will watch over you," she replied, her form beginning to blur as the shadows enveloped her. With one last look, I turned and ran from the house, my heart heavy with the knowledge that I had lost something precious. As I drove away, the rain began to fall again, washing away the remnants of the past. But Ratna's voice lingered in my mind, her words echoing through the chaos of my thoughts. "I will always be with you." Days turned into weeks, and though life returned to a semblance of normalcy, I felt a profound emptiness. The world seemed brighter, yet I was acutely aware of the shadows lurking in the corners of my mind. Ratna had saved the lost souls, but in doing so I had lost a piece of myself. As the nights passed, I found solace in revisiting the places we had shared, hoping to feel her presence once more. I would often drive down the same road where I had first picked her up, searching for any sign of her. But the streets remained quiet, the whispers of the past fading into the stillness of the night. Then, one evening, I received a call from my grandmother, her voice filled with concern. "You need to come home. There's something strange happening here," she said, her tone grave. "What do you mean?" I asked, dread pooling in my stomach. "There are sightings of a girl by the old oak tree, and people say she appears just before something bad happens," she explained. My heart raced as I recalled Ratna's warning. I knew I had to return to Anjal, but the thought filled me with unease. Had she remained tethered to that place? I feared what might happen if I didn't confront the darkness once and for all. Upon my arrival, the atmosphere felt thick with tension. My grandmother awaited me at the door, her face pale. "It's not just the sighting," she whispered. "There have been strange occurrences, things moving on their own, whispers in the night. People are terrified." "Where is this happening?" I asked, anxiety bubbling within me. "Near the old oak tree. That's where she's been seen," my grandmother said, glancing towards the window as if expecting something to appear. Determined to confront whatever was haunting my family, I made my way toward the oak tree. It stood tall and ancient, its branches swaying ominously in the wind. As I approached, I felt a familiar chill creep up my spine. "Ratna," I called out, my voice breaking the silence. The leaves rustled as if responding to my plea. Suddenly I caught sight of a figure standing just beyond the tree's shadow. My heart raced as I stepped closer, and I realized it was her Ratna, her form shimmering in the dim light. "You came back," she said, her voice soft yet filled with urgency. "I couldn't stay away," I replied, my breath hitching in my throat. "But what's happening here?" "There's a disturbance in the veil between worlds," she explained, her eyes reflecting the light of the setting sun. "The souls I helped were at peace, but some were left behind. They are angry and restless. They seek vengeance, and it's affecting this place." What can we do? I asked, panic rising in my chest. How can I help you? You must face them, she said, her tone firm. Only then can the balance be restored. With a nod of determination, I stepped forward, ready to confront the darkness. Show me, I urged. As if compelled by her words, I felt a surge of energy pulse through the air. The shadows began to swirl around us, coalescing into forms of those who had once been trapped, their faces twisted with anguish and fury. Why have you returned? They hissed, their voices merging into a haunting chorus. I came to help, I declared, my voice steady despite the fear gnawing at my insides. I understand your pain. I set your kin free. Why do you linger here? Because we were forsaken, one of them shrieked, its voice cutting through the darkness like a blade. You freed some, but we remain in torment. You must pay for your mistakes. I took a deep breath, the weight of their anger pressing down on me. I cannot change the past, but I can help you find peace. Let me understand your suffering. As I spoke, I felt Ratna's presence beside me, a calming force grounding me in the midst of chaos. Listen, she urged, her voice a soothing whisper. The apparitions flickered, and slowly, the stories began to unfold, each tale heavier than the last. Betrayal, loss, and a desperate desire for revenge coursed through their words. They were not just lost, they were trapped in a cycle of despair, clinging to their anger like a lifeline. I understand now, I said, tears brimming in my eyes. You need to be acknowledged. Your pain deserves to be heard. One figure stepped forward, its face twisted in sorrow. We were wronged. We want justice. Justice will not bring you peace, I replied softly. Let go of your anger. I can help you remember who you were, to honor your lives and stories without being consumed by hatred. The tension in the air shifted, the darkness flickering as they hesitated, uncertainty creeping into their forms. Will you truly listen? One asked, voice quivering with doubt. I promise, I said, my heart aching for their suffering. I'll be your voice. Together we will remember you, not for your pain, but for the love you once had. As I spoke, the air crackled with energy, and I felt a warmth surrounding us. The souls began to draw closer, their expressions softening as they listened. One by one, they began to share their stories, each filled with memories of love, laughter, and the dreams they once held dear. As the last of their stories faded into the night, the shadows began to lift, replaced by a warm light that enveloped us. The anger and despair dissipated, leaving only a profound sense of relief. Thank you, the apparitions whispered, their voices now filled with gratitude. You have freed us. I watched as the souls began to fade, their forms dissolving into the light, leaving behind an overwhelming sense of peace. Ratna turned to me, her eyes shimmering with pride. You did it. You set them free. But in that moment, I felt the shadows begin to close in again, a heaviness settling around us. What's happening? I gasped, fear gripping my heart. It's not over yet, Ratna said, her expression grave. There's still one more soul tied to this place, one that seeks revenge. Before I could respond, a dark figure emerged from the shadows, its presence suffocating. You think you can save them all? It hissed, voice like thunder. You cannot escape your fate. Panic surged through me as I faced the entity, its eyes glowing with malevolence. What do you want? I shouted, my voice trembling. Your life for theirs, it bellowed, and the ground beneath us trembled. You must choose sacrifice yourself, or they remain trapped. I turned to Ratna, desperation flooding my heart. I can't let them suffer. Then you must fight, she urged, her voice steady despite the chaos surrounding us. You have the power to protect them. Drawing on the strength I had found within myself, I stood my ground. I will not sacrifice my life for theirs. They deserve to be free, but I will not be your pawn. The entity recoiled, surprise flickering across its twisted face. You think you can defy me? I am not afraid of you, I shouted, my voice echoing through the darkness. You will not take me. I will fight for the souls who have suffered. As the words left my lips, I felt a surge of energy coursing through me, illuminating the darkness that surrounded us. The entity screeched in rage, the shadows clawing at my resolve. Ratna stood beside me, her presence a beacon of light. Together, she said, her voice fierce, we will banish the darkness. In that moment I raised my hands, channeling the energy I felt within. "You have no power here," I declared, my voice unwavering. The entity howled in fury as the light began to push it back, the shadows writhing and twisting as it struggled against our combined strength. "You cannot win," it screamed, but I could feel the tide turning. "Watch me," I shouted, my heart pounding in my chest. "I am the voice of those you seek to silence." With a final surge of energy, the darkness shattered, and the entity vanished into the ether, leaving behind only silence. As the light faded, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. Ratna turned to me, her eyes sparkling with gratitude. "You did it. You freed them all," she whispered. But as I looked around, I felt a strange emptiness in my heart. "What about you?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Will you finally be free?" Her expression softened, and she smiled sadly. "I have done my part. You have given me peace, and for that I will always be grateful." I reached out, wanting to pull her closer. "But I can't lose you. You mean so much to me." Her form began to shimmer, the light surrounding her brightening. "Remember me," she said, her voice gentle yet firm. "I will always be with you in every choice you make, in every moment of your life." Tears streamed down my face as I watched her fade into the light, a warmth enveloping me as she disappeared. In that moment, I understood the depth of our connection. She had not just been a spirit tied to the past, she had been my guide, my light in the darkness. As I stood beneath the old oak tree, the wind rustling through the leaves, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I would carry her memory with me, not as a ghost from the past, but as a beacon of hope for the future. With each passing day, I vowed to honor the lives of those I had helped free, sharing their stories, ensuring they would not be forgotten. I would live for them, for Ratna, and for the love that transcends even the darkest of shadows. And as I drove back down the road, the sun setting in the distance, I felt a profound peace settle within me, a promise that love, even when faced with the unimaginable, would always prevail. My uncle told me this story, a personal experience he had with his friend Ronnie. One day, while browsing the internet, Ronnie stumbled upon a chilling tale about an old suspension bridge located near his home. The website featured numerous pictures of the bridge and the eerie landscape surrounding it. The next time they met, Ronnie excitedly shared what he had discovered. The bridge spanned a deep gorge, and for reasons unknown it had become infamous for suicides. Each year, at least 5 to 10 people leaped into the abyss below. No one could explain why this particular spot drew so many to their tragic end. Locals whispered that the area was haunted by the restless spirits of those who had died there. That evening, my uncle felt an overwhelming urge to investigate the bridge himself. He was desperate to see a ghost, so under the cover of darkness, he set out for the mountains. After about half an hour, he arrived at the bridge just as the clock approached midnight. A heavy silence enveloped the place, and not a single soul was in sight. The atmosphere was thick with an unsettling aura that sent chills racing down his spine. "People just fool others about this place," he muttered to himself as he cautiously approached the edge of the gorge, peering into the inky blackness below. He couldn't help but think about the souls who had surrendered to the depths. Fascinated, he felt compelled to share his experience with Ronnie, so he fished out his cell phone to call him. But being high up in the mountains, he found he had no reception. As he scanned the area, my uncle spotted a phone booth nearby. He stepped inside, inserted some coins, and dialed Ronnie's number. "Hello, Ronnie? Guess who's speaking?" he said. "I'm at the same bridge you told me about earlier. Why don't you join me tonight? It's so pleasant and quiet here." "Why not?" Ronnie replied. "I've seen that place on Google. Wait there, I'm coming. By the way, where are you calling from?" My uncle laughed. "Oh, my phone is out of range, so I'm using a payphone." Ronnie sounded confused. "Payphone? There's no payphone there. If there was, I would have seen it in the photos." "Bullshit. There's a payphone on the way to the bridge. Now, don't delay. People are waiting outside for their turn." So Ronnie suddenly shouted, "No, don't move from there. I know that place, and I'm coming in 15 minutes. Just stay inside the payphone and don't hang up." "What happened?" my uncle asked, perplexed. "Just promise me you won't move from there. Whatever you do, don't leave that booth." When Ronnie hung up, a wave of dread washed over my uncle. He clutched his phone tightly, unwilling to let go. Outside the booth, he noticed a group of people staring at him. their eyes filled with an unsettling intensity that sent shivers coursing through him. 15 minutes later, Ronnie arrived at the suspension bridge, his heart racing. He scanned the area and found his friend standing at the very edge of the bridge, cell phone pressed against his ear, completely unaware of what he was doing. There was no phone booth in sight, nor any line of people waiting to use it. If my uncle had moved even an inch, he would have plummeted to his death below. The realization struck Ronnie like a thunderclap. He had to act quickly. Something was terribly wrong, and the ghosts of the bridge were hungry for another soul. Adam gripped the steering wheel tighter, his knuckles turning white as the rain poured relentlessly, hammering against the windshield of his Alto. The car, which he had bought just a month ago from Jake in Jalpaiguri, seemed like a curse more than a blessing. He was returning from a wedding reception in Kalimpong, alone on a desolate road that snaked through the eerie Savok forest. The trees loomed on either side like silent watchers, their shadows twisting in the headlights. It was nearing midnight, and the absence of any other vehicles made the silence even more oppressive. His heart raced in his chest, not just from the isolation, but from the strange occurrences that had plagued him since he bought the car. It wasn't just the minor accidents that had cost him so much, it was the inexplicable way the car seemed to have a mind of its own. The steering would sometimes jerk violently to the side, as if someone else was controlling it, and the brakes had failed him on more than one occasion. His drivers refused to use the car at night, all insisting the Alto was haunted. They claimed to feel an unseen presence lurking, always at night when they were alone. Adam had laughed off their stories. Haunted? He didn't believe in such things. Yet tonight, a knot of dread tightened in his stomach. He had never been this uncomfortable driving before, and the heavy rain made the road ahead barely visible. He was desperate to get home. It was already 1 a.m. when he passed Savok's temple. He tried to shake off the anxiety gnawing at him, but that was when he saw her. His breath hitched, his hands froze momentarily on the wheel. On the side of the road, a woman in her 50s, completely naked, held a plate in her hands. She was walking toward the temple, her movements slow and deliberate. Adam's foot pressed harder on the accelerator, his pulse skyrocketing. He didn't dare look back, but her image was burned into his mind. His throat went dry. Which, he whispered to himself, barely believing what he'd seen. Was she practicing black magic? Who else would be out in such weather, at this time dressed like that, or rather, undressed? The rain hammered harder against the roof of the car, and the windshield wipers thrashed uselessly against the sheets of water. Adam kept his eyes on the road, his heartbeat pounding in his ears. He told himself it was just a trick of the mind, brought on by the tension of driving through the storm. But at 1:15 a.m., something else began to gnaw at him. The air inside the car grew cold, unnaturally cold. His skin prickled as if something or someone had stirred inside the vehicle with him. He glanced at the passenger seat, empty. But he couldn't shake the feeling. A piercing scream shattered the silence, a woman's cry, sharp and shrill, coming from the back seat. Adam's heart nearly stopped. His fingers went numb as he clutched the steering wheel tighter, his foot pressing down involuntarily on the gas. He couldn't bring himself to look behind him, couldn't acknowledge the presence that his body knew was there. Desperation filled him as he began to mutter the Hanuman Chalisa under his breath, but the crying, it grew louder, more frantic. It reverberated through the car, piercing his ears and sending ice-cold terror down his spine. Finally, against his better judgment, Adam stole a glance at the rearview mirror. His blood ran cold. A woman drenched, her dress soaked with blood, stared back at him from the back seat. Her eyes hollow, her face twisted with agony. Blood dripped from her forehead, staining the fabric of her dress a deep crimson. Her presence filled the car with a suffocating dread. Adam screamed. His hands wrenched the steering wheel, and the car veered wildly off the road, crashing headlong into a tree. The impact knocked him unconscious, and everything went black. So when Adam woke, it was daylight. He was in a hospital bed, his body aching but his injuries minor. But it wasn't his physical wounds that disturbed him. It was the memory of the blood-soaked woman in the back seat. So the image was seared into his mind, and no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't shake it. Later that day, with his relatives in tow, he made his way to Jalpaiguri, to Jake's house. He needed answers. There had to be some explanation for what he had experienced. As they sat in Jake's living room, Adam recounted everything: the strange behavior of the car, the accidents, and the terrifying encounter the previous night. Jake, Adam began, his voice trembling. Has anything happened in that car? A murder or? Jake's face hardened. Are you accusing me of something? So, no, but last night I saw a woman. She was wearing a blue dress, blood all over her. Adam described the woman in vivid detail, her age, her appearance, the blood. As he spoke, Jake's face paled, and tears welled up in his eyes. Are you sure? Jake asked, his voice barely a whisper. Adam nodded. Yes, I saw her. Jake broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. I think you saw my wife, Jake managed through his tears. Last year, she met with an accident in that very car. The night was suffocating, heavy with a silence that felt alive. I couldn't shake the lingering sense of dread that had seeped into my bones over the past few weeks. It wasn't just a dream, no, it was something deeper, something darker clawing its way into my mind. You're a coward. You don't have what it takes to be a man. The words echoed in my head, the voice belonging to a shadowy figure that haunted my nightmares. His eyes were cold, lifeless yet full of contempt. That smirk on his face, that mocking twitch, it was enough to jolt me awake every time, drenched in sweat, heart pounding as if trying to break free from my chest. I've been having this same dream for what feels like forever. Maybe I've watched one too many horror movies. Maybe I've fed into my own fear, but it's getting worse, bleeding into my waking hours. Every night I crawl into bed, hoping, praying that it won't come back, but deep down I know it will. I live with my parents, in a house that's always been warm, familiar, safe, but now something's different. The walls feel tighter, the shadows darker. I work a meaningless job, just another guy trapped in monotony. But this dream is driving me mad. Should I tell them? No. How could I? Telling them would be stupid. They'd think I was losing it, and maybe I am, but what could they do? Worry maybe. Pity me, and I can't handle that. You're a coward, Woody. I blinked, and the room shifted. I was standing there, in the middle of my room, panting, fists clenched. My heart raced, my face slick with sweat, but I was alone. The house was still. Silent. Too silent. I felt it then, someone was there with me, watching from the shadows. This feeling, this fear, it was becoming unbearable. The nights were getting longer, darker, as if time itself was conspiring against me. But I couldn't let it win. I couldn't keep feeding into the terror, so I decided to ignore it, to pretend nothing was happening. I told myself if I didn't respond, maybe it would stop. For a time it worked. The dreams subsided. The nights were just nights again. I was free, or so I thought. But that stormy night, the peace I thought I'd found shattered. I woke up with a start, my body aching. My shoulders throbbed, and when I looked, there were bruises, dark, angry marks. My legs felt weak as I stumbled out of bed. Something was wrong. Something was very, very wrong. My heart drummed against my ribs as I limped down the hall, the air heavy with a smell I couldn't place, metallic, thick. My parents' bedroom door was open, just a crack. The house was quiet, but not the peaceful kind. The oppressive kind, the kind that smothers you. I stepped inside. The sight hit me like a punch to the gut. My mother's body lay on the bed, motionless, her eyes gone. Hollow sockets stared back at me, her mouth frozen in a grotesque scream, her hands twisted, pointing toward something or someone. My father. His throat had been torn open, his body slashed to pieces, barely recognizable. Blood soaked everything. The walls, the floor, the bed. I couldn't move, I couldn't think. My legs gave way beneath me, but I didn't fall. I just stood there, paralyzed, my mind struggling to process what I was seeing. This isn't real. It can't be real. But it was. The stench of blood was suffocating, the sheer horror of it freezing me in place. My heart felt like it stopped. Everything around me felt like it was closing in, the room spinning as the grotesque scene replayed in my mind. I stumbled back, legs barely supporting me, as I rushed into the bathroom. I collapsed in front of the sink and vomited, my entire body shaking uncontrollably. When I finally looked up, gasping for breath, I froze again. In the mirror, staring back at me, was my reflection or something that looked like me, but it wasn't me. It smiled, a twisted, crooked grin. And then it winked. A mother and her 5-year-old daughter lived in a small wooden house with a garden out front. An old swing creaked gently in the breeze, adding to the house's charm. However, the house was so old that the floorboards squeaked ominously with every step. Since her husband left her, the mother had been struggling with an anxiety disorder, feeling the weight of her solitude and the burden of her fears. For weeks, she had been hearing strange sounds in the house, soft giggles and distant cries of a girl that didn't belong to her daughter. She tried to brush them off, convincing herself it was just her imagination. One evening, however, as she was passing by a room, the laughter of two girls caught her attention. Curious, she entered to find her daughter playing with her dolls, but there was no one else there. Confused, she left the room, shaking off an unsettling feeling. At dinner, she asked her daughter why she had been laughing. Her daughter smiled brightly and replied, "I was playing with my new friend, Eerie. She told me not to tell anyone about her." The mother's heart sank. "What does she look like?" she asked cautiously. Her daughter's description chilled her to the bone. She has very big black eyes, no teeth, skinny, and her skin is pale white. Panic surged through the mother, and she quickly sent her daughter to bed. Just then, they heard a strange noise coming from the garden, and her daughter, with a grin, said, "That must be Mary." The mother hesitated but then stepped outside, her daughter trailing behind her. They both watched in horror as the swing began to move on its own. "Go to bed now," the mother insisted, and her daughter obeyed. As she approached the swing, it picked up speed, swaying violently in the night air. Terrified, she rushed back to her bedroom, where her daughter lay sleeping. She lay down beside her, desperately trying to calm her racing heart. Moments later, she heard the creaking sound of the bedroom door opening slowly. A soft voice whispered, "Mummy, are you sleeping?" Frozen with fear, she clutched her daughter tightly and pulled the sheets over them as the lamp flickered and went out. Her heart raced as she heard the familiar squeaking sound of the floorboards creeping closer. Holding her breath, she felt a hand brush against her face, the sheets pulled down slightly, and the voice called out again, "Mummy." Reluctantly, she opened her eyes, only to find her daughter standing beside her, holding her teddy bear. A wave of relief washed over her, but then her heart sank. The figure next to her wasn't her daughter. It was Mary. With wide, haunting eyes, Mary looked at her and said, "Mummy." Paralyzed with terror, the mother felt her soul rattle, yet her instincts screamed for her to protect her daughter. With a sudden burst of adrenaline, she leapt off the bed, grabbing her daughter tightly, and bolted out of the room, slamming the door behind her. Gasping for breath, she felt an unsettling coldness creep into her chest. Glancing down, her heart dropped. There was no one in her arms. Panic surged as her mind went blank, but survival instincts kicked in, and she rushed back to the bedroom. With trembling hands, she pushed the door open and peered inside, her face going pale at the sight before her. On the bed, her daughter was sobbing over her torn teddy bear, but over her shoulder, a dark entity loomed on the wall, a mass of pitch blackness, its face marred by two stark white eyes. Long strands of hair floated around it like black smoke. In that moment, witnessing her daughter's tears and the sinister presence looming above, something fierce surged within the mother. Ignoring the entity, she rushed forward, scooping her daughter into her arms. She turned and fled the room, slamming the door behind her. Outside, she sank onto the swing, cradling her daughter, who felt eerily still. Looking down, she realized with horror that her daughter was not moving. Her eyes were hollow, dark sockets staring into nothingness, and her skin was as pale as a ghost. Tears streamed down the mother's cheeks as she tenderly stroked her daughter's hair. Then, driven by a heart-wrenching need, she began to dig a hole in the garden, gently laying her unmoving daughter inside. As she filled the grave, a sense of finality washed over her. Returning to the house, she was met by Mary, who stood there holding a teddy bear. "Mummy," Mary said, her voice sweet yet chilling. The mother dropped to her knees, embracing Mary tightly, and asked, "Are you hungry?" In that moment, she realized that she had found the companionship she desperately sought, but at a horrifying cost. When I was 13, a girl with an unusual physical deformity came to stay with her grandmother on our street for the summer. Our neighborhood wasn't very big, so there weren't many kids. The few of us who were around built and maintained a fort with a treehouse in the woods. Naturally, the new girl wanted to play with us, and we led her down our trail into the dusky woods. Her deformity was striking. Her index fingers wouldn't straighten out all the way. We were morbidly fascinated by this affliction. Though she said she didn't mind if we looked, I always thought she was hiding her feelings. It seemed our gawking at her fingers hurt her more than she let on. Still, she wanted to fit in and pretended our curiosity didn't matter. Not long after she started hanging out with us, strange things began to happen. The other kids were younger than I was, the youngest being Molly, who was 9 and a half, if you asked her. Like most kids, we had an abundance of energy and despised when our parents forced us into afternoon naps. That was another reason we spent so much time at our fort, so we could avoid nap time. Out of sight, out of mind. But once the new girl joined us, we all started climbing up into our treehouse for naps. We kept our sleeping bags out there, and we always had snacks: potted meat, spam, sardines, and little cans of Vienna sausages with pull-tab rings for easy opening, along with crackers, cookies, and Kool-Aid. With her presence, we began to feel drowsy after our snacks, and napping became a habit. That's when the bizarre events began. Whenever we woke from our naps, the new girl would be squatting near one of us, her hands hovering near our faces, and in those moments, her index fingers would be perfectly straight, as if they were no longer deformed at all. Our eyes would widen in terror, and we'd jump to our feet, shaking with fear. We'd yell at her, demanding she leave our fort, but she would always cry and beg until we relented. But then, when we let her stay, the same eerie thing would happen again. Her name was Sybil, and she claimed that a demon lived inside her. She said the demon used supernatural powers to put us to sleep, whispering in her ear that she should kill us. That summer, Sybil's grandmother died. The evening news reported that the autopsy revealed the old woman had suffocated in her bed late at night. After that, Sybil's parents came to take her away, and we never heard from her again. Time passed, and all the other kids in our rural neighborhood faced tragic fates. Tyler's brother accidentally shot himself with a shotgun he thought was unloaded. Molly was run over by a car that didn't see her darting in and out of the smoke from the mosquito spray truck. Karen choked to death on a hard candy that lodged in her throat. Dwayne was electrocuted when a CD player plugged into a wall outlet fell into the bathtub with him. Our family moved away, and as far as I know, I'm the only survivor from our treehouse club. Recently, I've seen reports in the media about a satanic cult in the desert of southern Utah. The leader of this cult is purported to be a woman named Sybil, but I don't know what to believe. All I know is that I can't sleep unless the light is on and the door to my room is locked. As a child, I was captivated by horror stories, but one incident etched itself into my memory like a nightmare. I live in Kolkata, and my grandmother hails from a remote village about 2 hours away from the bustling city. I was around 12 or 13 when summer vacation began, and my mother, along with my aunt, decided to take my sister and me to that village. The village was a green oasis, abundant with trees, bushes, and shrubs. Every family had their own pond, and the population was so sparse that if everyone gathered in one place, you could count them all within a minute. In the heart of this idyllic landscape stood an unfinished building, shrouded in whispers of ghostly tales. Locals claimed it was haunted, a curse that had kept construction at a standstill. My sister and I, too young to grasp the seriousness of these warnings, were strictly forbidden from venturing near that ominous structure. Yet, being the typical stubborn children we were, the word forbidden only fueled our curiosity. One afternoon, while everyone else in the house dozed off after lunch, my sister and I stealthily slipped out to play near the haunted building. It was meant to be a 2-story edifice, but only a few stairs had been constructed, leaving the rest of the structure incomplete. We were having the time of our lives until an unsettling noise shattered the tranquility. Fear gripped us, and we knew it was time to flee. As we turned to run, my sister stumbled over some rocks and fell. Panic surged through me as I attempted to lift her, but she felt heavier by the second. In a moment of desperation, we began reciting the religious mantras we had learned. So miraculously, she became light again, and without wasting another moment, we dashed away, our hearts pounding in our chests. We chose to keep the incident to ourselves, terrified and bewildered. Being in a village where night falls quickly, everyone tends to sleep early. After dinner, my mother sent us upstairs to bed, insisting on turning off the lights despite our protests. She left the balcony lights on, a meager source of comfort, as she descended to the lower floor, leaving us in the dark. We tossed and suddenly, Together. Just Everything went black after that. I remember nothing of what transpired in the hours that followed. That whenever I muster the courage to ask my mother about that night, she deftly changes the subject, avoiding my questions entirely. Years later, when I returned to the village, I learned that a woman had been murdered in that very building, which only solidified the haunt tales that had surrounded it. The whispers of the past echoed in my mind, a chilling reminder of that fateful night. What about crazy and scary? It was June 1972. Life was so much simpler then. I often found myself saying, I couldn't wait for the good old days. Little did I know, those days were the good old days. At just 18 years old, I was living with my child and my parents temporarily. I usually walked several blocks to my oldest sister's apartment, where she had 7 young children. I helped her cook, babysit, bathe, and clean up after her kids whatever was necessary to keep things running smoothly. One night, I left my sister's apartment around 9 p.m., taking a shortcut home through a dark alley. I came up from the street, heading towards the back of my house, where a fence separated my family's home from a fisherman's house facing the street. As I walked, I scanned my surroundings. That's when I saw something very unusual, a huge figure leaning against my uncle's fence, which I guessed was half a block away. Fear gripped me and I tried to figure out which way to run, back the way I came or toward my house. Suddenly, I decided to run toward my home, sensing it wouldn't matter which direction I took. By the time I reached the fence, it was already there, waiting for me. It's a wonder I didn't go into shock. I called it the Death Angel. This creature was enormous, completely black, so black that it was just an outline against the night. Its wingspan was about 6 or 7 feet, with red eyes and claws that looked grotesque. It seemed like something that had come straight from hell. Deep down, I felt it didn't want me. I ran past it, stopping suddenly as I thought it would kill me. I knew it could easily outrun me. I told myself, stop, you're going to die. At least get a good look at the killer. I turned to face it, only about 6 feet apart. I could never forget what I saw, and even after 51 years, the memory is seared into my mind. I made it home fast, my body shaking from fear that I would see it again. I calmed down enough to knock on the door and went inside. My parents and 5 siblings were all watching TV in the living room. My mum had always told me not to share what I saw, heard, or sensed, so I didn't say a word. My family always laughed at me, which hurt because I didn't know how to cope with my experiences. No one believed me or supported me. My mum and I were alike in some ways, but she was secretive about it and refused to talk to me about what I'd seen. As I walked into the living room, I pretended everything was normal, still trying to decode what had happened and why. 2 weeks later, my 14-year-old sister walked through the same alley and ran home, screaming and yelling, nearly knocking our front door down. She looked wild, her expression filled with terror. I immediately knew she had seen it too. Reality hit me hard, something was out there. It took a while to calm her down, but when she did, she described the same terrifying figure I had seen in the alley. Everyone was hesitant to believe her, but I spoke up, telling my parents and siblings that I had experienced the same thing a couple of weeks prior. My mother burst into tears and started pacing. Then she said it was an omen, a message that someone in the family would die soon. We all cried, but we had no idea who that person might be. The angel had chased my sister all the way home and was reaching for her through the door. I feared it would be her. Just 2 weeks later, a gang of teenagers came to our house unannounced. My 14-year-old sister was kidnapped, tied up, and beaten badly. My mother had warned her to leave the gang alone, but my sister didn't listen, and they didn't like it. The ringleader, Luke D., was about 16 and already a murderer. I had talked to my sister just before she was taken. Well, the first time, she asked me for something to wear, and I said yes. Normally, I wouldn't have agreed, but I was so glad to be nice to her. So the gang took my sister and threw her alive into the Arkansas River. My mother's warning had come true. All I hadn't seen the death angel again once was more than enough. By the way, Luke murdered many people. His aunt was a witch who cast spells. After she passed, he found it hard to escape the consequences of his actions. He was sent to prison for years, thanks to his aunt's influence, avoiding punishment for his crimes against my sister, cousin, and humanity. Recently, I heard that Luke suffered a horrible death. By the time he was found, his body was covered in maggots. Now my sister is no longer haunting the family. It was said that she appeared in a couple of people's houses. I believe she wanted justice. Now she rests in peace.